This episode of the Breakthrough Success Podcast is brought to you by Jobber. Jobber is your business's command center. The easy-to-use app powers your sales, operations, and customer service all in one place. Go check them out at getjobber.com/breakthrough to receive 20% off your first 6 months. What's up, Breakthrough Success listeners? Mark Burry, the podcast and virtual summit launch coach here. And decisions that we make really impact the lives we lead in the future. And one of the areas where we need to think differently about the decisions we make and how we are making those decisions is around health. And we have a guest who's going to share some insights into how can we make better decisions that help us from a health standpoint, a business standpoint, just being able to master the decision-making, focus on what matters, allows us to make better decisions that lead to a better future. So our guest is a health consultant and keynote speaker on health. He started his journey in health as a personal trainer, but it wasn't until he discovered the teachings of some ancient cultures that he truly started to understand health. Our guest is, through all this experience, an expert in holistic health. So our guest who joins us for this episode of Breakthrough Success is none other than Luke Vandepeer. Luke, welcome to the show.
Awesome, Mark. Thank you very much for having me.
Luke, it is a pleasure to have you on Breakthrough Success, and I feel like this is an important topic because the way we make decisions really impacts our future, and sometimes we can make decisions without really thinking about long-term effects or where we want to go in life. So can you share with us a little bit on how we could do decision-making differently so we're making the right decisions and we're focusing on what matters?
Absolutely. So my biggest challenge, or in my experience in the health space, people tend to make that a decision around their health, exactly like you're saying, without thinking about where they're going to go in the future. They may, in some cases, think that they have this nirvana that they think they want to get to, and by making this decision today, that's going to get them to nirvana, and there's not really much else that they need to do other than make the decision. The challenge with that is that the decision is really only the first step. They forget that once you've made the decision, there is other stages involved in that to get you to this thing that you want, which is your nirvana or your goal around health, which can also be applied to business, to other areas of life. We forget that we need to practice before we can become what we want. So the first thing we need to do is make the decision that we need to make a change. And then we need to apply that. We need to practice what it is that we're going to put into play within our lives so that we can become what it is that we want. In my life, in my experience, I have made a decision that I need to make some change on a number of occasions. And then you wake up on the day that you're going to make a change, and you're supposed to be getting up and, as one example, getting up and going for a run in the morning, but the bed's too comfortable. Does that mean that you didn't make the decision the day before? Not at all. You still made the decision, but you, or I, in this example, I failed to get out of bed and kind of put the trainers on and go to the gym or go for a run or do whatever it was that I was going to do on that day. It doesn't mean I didn't make the decision. We forget that the decision is only step one.
Yeah, that's a really great point, because some people, they'll feel like they make the decision and then they'll think about having the success already. And while it's great to visualize, the issue is that, you make your decision, but then you act as if it's complete. Some people act as if they've already done it or they've already accomplished it just in the act of making a decision. I think Luke's example about the running really strikes home, because you could decide to run in the morning. If you don't get out of bed, you didn't follow up with your decision. So how do you suggest we get better at following up with the decisions that we make?
Fantastic. Yes, absolutely, Mark. So You mentioned before as well, if I can just take a step back and go, okay, so where does this come from? Where does this philosophy come from? If you actually go back into Greek culture, they actually looked at 3 different stages in that. They actually called them gnosis, praxis, and intellicus. Gnosis is to know. So this is the knowledge through experience. We know that we need to make a change. And the act of making that decision that you need to make a change, people often look at it and go, okay, that means that I'm at intellicus. What intellicus is the essentially to be. It becomes a part of who you are. But we've skipped that whole stage of praxis in the middle. And from my point of view, we make a choice every day of what we're going to do. We decide, we make a choice around, okay, am I going to have a glass of water before I eat my breakfast? What am I going to have for breakfast? Am I going to have porridge or am I going to have toast? We make all these choices every day. And we know through our own experience and through the knowledge that we have through, whether it be through social media, whether it be through media, whether it be through your schooling, whether it be a university degree, we know that these choices, there's always one that's better and one that's worse, one that's positive or one that's negative. And they might only be slightly more positive or negative, but we do know that one is going to be the better choice for our health, but also it might be one is going to be the better choice in our business. One is going to be the better choice in our relationship. All of these things, we have a positive and a negative. The challenge that we have is that we try, once we've made that decision, to make sure that every one of those choices that we make is the positive. And we believe that as we go through this process, that we need to always be on the positive side. We need to be perfect because we've made this decision. And when we slip back into old habits or we slip back into the negative choice, we beat ourselves up. And that's if I can be blunt, that's the worst thing that we can do. You take my previous example of getting out of bed to go for a run or whatever it be. If we then wake up that morning after we've slept in and we go, oh, well, I discount that decision. I didn't make the decision. I'm not going to make that change because I failed once. We're never going to get anywhere. So the strategy from my experience is that what we want to focus on is making those positive choices outweigh those negative choices. Now, does that happen on day one? Not always. Does it need to happen on day one? No. It's a process of making those positive choices outweigh those negative choices. And that might take, for some people, a day. For other people, it might take 2 weeks. It might take 2 months, because they have got so ingrained in the negative choice and sticking with the negative choice. Does that mean that they need to beat themselves up about that? Absolutely not. If they're making one good choice each day, they're making progress. They're practicing. And this is where the praxis comes in. It takes people different lengths of time to get to intellicus, to get to it being a part of who they are. We need to focus on making progress, not perfection. We just need to be practicing and making those positive choices as often as we can.
And that's some really great insights there, because I feel like one of the classic examples of this is New Year's, where we make resolutions. Like going to the gym is a very popular resolution. And you have someone who's like consistent every day for 10 days, but on day 11 or whatever day it is, they don't go to the gym. And then they go back to their old habits. This is why you hear about so many people giving up on their New Year's resolutions by February. So I think it's really important for us to, go for the positive choice every day, but not to fall back into old habits or not to give up once a negative choice is made. So how can we become more resilient so that when we're not perfect on a day, like when you don't go to the gym, when you don't do what you're supposed to be doing, how do you just buckle down tomorrow, go back right at it, try to make the positive choice versus slipping into old habits and eventually giving up on the goal?
So the big thing for me is to focus on the progress. The simple understanding that perfection is not our goal, it is progress, has helped me and so many of my clients as we go through and make positive change in our lives. We simply focus on, okay, this is where I started. This is where I'm at now. Am I perfect? Am I where I want to be? Absolutely not. But what have I changed? In the example you've just given, and I love the example because there are so many people who do make a New Year's resolution. It's the time of year that everyone decides it's a new year, the new me, the new body, the new everything that I want, I'm going to create for myself in the new year. And it's a fantastic thing to do. Having said that, you're absolutely correct. They do fall away by February because they're expecting perfection. We don't expect perfection. We expect progress. So every time you stumble, every time you don't go to the gym, don't focus on the fact that you haven't gone to the gym today or that you haven't had the successful meeting that you wanted to have today. It's, okay, so what did I do tomorrow? How did I feel yesterday? I just said tomorrow. How did I feel yesterday instead of focusing on what's happened today? Was yesterday successful? Yes. Okay, is every day going to be perfect? No. So therefore, focus on what you've achieved rather than what you've not achieved today. Then you will be able to pick yourself up. You will be able to dust yourself off and go, okay, can I do anything about it today? No, I've missed my window. I was going to get up and go to the gym first thing this morning because I know that I've got a full day following, or I have already eaten my lunch, so I can't make that choice of the healthy option for lunch again because I've already eaten my lunch. So make the better choice the next time. Tomorrow is another opportunity to improve that choice. Tomorrow is another opportunity to make a positive influence within your life.
We have more great content coming up in this episode, but first we have a message from today's sponsor, Jobber. Jobber's award-winning software helps small home service businesses organize their entire operations, from scheduling jobs and managing their crews to invoicing customers and collecting payments. That way, you can spend more time on the services you're already great at. Job by job, business by business, Jobber is transforming the ways their customers deliver service. Start your free trial over at getjobber.com/breakthrough. All right, let's get right back into the episode. And Luke brings up this point where one of the things I want to mention here is that it's better to think long-term than short-term, because, you mess up that one day, you think you're done. But Luke says, no, look at yesterday, look at the day before that, look at all these days when you have gone to the gym, when you have done this habit, and focus more on that. I mean, from an investor standpoint, like if you invest in the stock market, are you going to give up on it if you have one bad day? I mean, bad days are going to happen when it comes to investing, and also in life when it comes to the decisions you want to make. I mean, I run half marathons and marathons, so the example Luke gives really relates about the running. Do I run every day? I don't. I run on most days, but if I miss a day, I'm not going to be like, oh, my running career is over. But there are people who, if you just started on your path and you miss a day, you could think, oh, it's over for me. So Luke brings up a really great point there. Granted, we do want to make more positive than negative choices, and that is something Luke mentioned. Overall, be like net positive. So how do you recommend we get better at making the positive choices? Like we can't make them every single day. We can't get out of the bed, run every single day. But how do we get better at, increasing our likelihood of a positive choice?
So the increase of the likelihood of a positive choice for me comes with practice. And the challenge with that is that there's not the pill that I can take you to the drugstore and find for you that's going to give you this positive outlook, this positive choice. There's nothing that I can physically give you that's going to give you that. So how do you become more weighted towards the positive? So, and I know a lot of people have probably heard this before, but it's about where you want to get to. If you're focused on where you want to get to, the positive choice becomes easier, because where you want to get to, the positive choice is a step in that direction, rather than focusing on where you are now, where you want to get to. There's I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, Mark, but there's a book written by a gentleman by the name of Jeff Olson called The Slight Edge.
Oh, that's a good book.
The Slight Edge. It's a fantastic book. And I actually, when I was working in a personal training space a number of years ago, I actually used to give it to all of my clients, because it really does give the brilliant example of, it's not what you do today that's going to earn you $1 million or make you super fit or have anything go on in your life today. It's the stack that we create over time that is going to make that positive change. So how do we make those positive changes? How do we make those positive decisions? By focusing on what it is that we're looking to achieve rather than where we are today. If we consistently are focusing on where we want to get to, rather than the muck that we're dealing with today, or the stress that we're dealing with today, or the bad day. You talked about the stock market, Mark. Fantastic example as well. Everyone is going to have a bad day every now and again. Not always do we go up. Not always do we go to the gym and can smash out 2 hours at the gym, or even a really good run and get it done in 4-minute Ks and those sort of things. Are we going to be able to do those things every day? Not at all. But by making the positive choice towards where we want to go, more often than not, that's where we want to focus. Where do we want to get to? Not where we are today or where we were.
And I think The Slight Edge is a really great book example. I'm going to link it to the show notes, but just that idea of, the stuff you do today, you really see the big results like 3 months from now, 6 months from now, depending on what it is that you're doing. And those results just keep compounding over time. The Compound Effect is a very similar book to Slight Edge. I definitely recommend both of those books to all Breakthrough Success listeners. We've definitely focused on decision-making, but I would like to get into health a little bit. So can you share with us some of the things that you've learned regarding health that can impact us in a good way?
Absolutely. So I talked before about the Greek culture and the Gnosis praxis and the Intellicus as a philosophical methodology. The other ancient culture that's really influenced me in the health space is the Egyptian culture. Now, not too many people are aware that they actually have still the reputation for being one of the most healthy and most hygienic cultures to have ever walked the earth. And that is predominantly because they were very focused on actually allowing the body to go through a process of detoxification. So, and what I mean by that is that your body needs an opportunity to actually get rid of all the things that it doesn't need and doesn't want. We in society today are taught to get out of bed and eat breakfast, the most important meal of the day, all of those analogies around get up and fuel your body to start your day. And then we're taught to eat lunch, and then we're taught to eat dinner. And if you read some of the more recent fitness texts, you'll be taught to not just eat 3 times a day, but shrink your meals and eat 6 times a day to keep your metabolism going and all of those sort of things. What the Egyptian culture actually did is they actually did the opposite of that. They did what we these days, and there's a bit of a buzzword around it at the moment, they did a thing called intermittent fasting. Now, there are a number of different methods of intermittent fasting that are being promoted at the moment. But in my experience, intermittent fasting is something that we should be doing every day. What intermittent fasting does is it actually breaks the day up into 3 8-hour periods. 8 hours to consume your food, 8 hours to assimilate your food, and then 8 hours to allow your body to detoxify the things that it doesn't need from what you consumed the day before. Essentially, when you wake up in the morning and you feel like you've got a dry tongue and you don't feel very well, and things don't feel like you want to bounce out of bed and attack the day, that's because your body's actually still detoxifying. It's trying to get rid of all of those things. And if we get up in the morning and the first thing that we do is eat some food, that stops that process. And so what your body needs to do with all those toxins that it's still holding onto from what you consumed the day before is it needs to store those things. And the only place, or the only way that your body knows how to do that for a long period of time is to store it in fat cells. Now, I'm fairly sure that that the Western world around the globe has a similar problem to Australia, where we're seeing high rises in obesity and high rises in some pretty chronic diseases as a result of these sort of things. So if we're not allowing our body to detox, then what are we doing? We're growing from an obesity point of view. Now, Mark, I can actually tell you that this process has changed my life. I talked to you today nearly 40 kilos lighter than I was a mere 4 years ago. And all I've done is implement these principles into my life.
I mean, those are really solid ideas, especially when you think about, we go back to the slight edge or the compound effect, depending on which one you like more. And, it doesn't really matter in a day, but it's going to matter in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. So it's better to get this settled now than it is to be in that desperate situation. So I think Luke's advice is really spot on. Luke, I'm wondering if you could share with us where we could find your work so we could continue following you on your journey.
Fantastic, and thank you very much for prompting that. So I do have a website. My website is Luke Vandepeer. So my name, LukeVandeper.com. And I am on all of the socials, so you can find me also on YouTube and on Facebook and also on LinkedIn. And I'm also on Instagram as well. So I'm just going to, if you, the handle on Facebook is simply Luke Vandepeer. I've been on there for a while, so I know it's quite unusual to find a profile like that hasn't got numbers and letters in it. But I believe that I was, by the looks of it, the first Luke Vandepeer, and it's the same on LinkedIn. So definitely hit me up, and I look forward to hearing from some of your listeners, Mark.
Luke will make sure to include all those links in the show notes so you guys could all follow Luke's work. But once again, thank you so much, Luke, for coming on Breakthrough Success. It was such a pleasure having you on the show.
Awesome, Mark. Thank you very much for having me.
This episode of the Breakthrough Success Podcast was brought to you by Jobber. Jobber is your business's command center. The easy-to-use app powers your sales, operations, and customer service all in one place. Start a free trial or sign up today to receive 20% off your first 6 months. Find out more at getjobber.com/breakthrough.